Hi, this is Ricky from Data Mastery, and today we are going to talk about data quality rules in the AWS Glue DataBrew service. So, what are data quality rules or DQ rules in short? Data quality rules is a predefined set of criteria or set of checks that we apply to the data sets to ensure that the data meets the standard of quality. Let's talk about some of the features or advantages of having DQ rules. Well, it does the automatic data validation, so we don't have to do any manual validation. Once we apply or configure the rules and apply those rules on the data set, the data validation will be totally automatic. And then the scalability for the large data sets. If the data sets are large in nature, since you are not managing it manually, and this is a managed service, so it can scale out and it will take care of, doesn't matter how big or small the data set is. And since we apply the DQ rules on the data before we do any transformation or before we apply any business logic on the data, this helps us in the early detection of anomalies and errors in the data. And again, if we are detecting the errors right at the beginning, it reduces the data cleansing effort that we have to apply, or you can say the hours that we have to spend on cleaning the data, those will be reduced because we are applying the first guardrail right on the data right at the very beginning. So once we move to the cleansing effort or the ETL effort, that time the data is pretty much in the defined standard of quality that we want. That's why the total cleansing effort will be reduced. And again, the data quality rules help us to maintain the accuracy because the rules are applied to the entire data set or selected columns, whatever we want to apply the DQ rules on, which allows us to maintain the accuracy across the data set. The biggest benefit of having the DQ rules is that it helps with the compliance with the data governance. And as I said earlier, you define your standards beforehand, and then you convert those standards into DQ rules and apply those rules or the standards on the data sets. So that helps you to maintain the compliance in accordance with the data governance and the standards set by the data governance teams. So these are some of the high-level advantages of having DQ rules. Let's do a quick demo and understand how this works in real time. Welcome to the short demo on the DQ rules. In this demo, we have a sample data or a dummy data that is already in the Glue DataBrew service. And then we are going to apply some DQ rules and understand how these rules are going to help us maintain the data quality. Now, if you want to understand more about DataBrew in general or how to create DataBrew project or what are DataBrew jobs, then you can check out another video that we have recorded for this. The link for that video is added in the description of this video. As you see on your screen, this is how the Glue DataBrew service looks. And the first thing that you need to configure is to create a project. So I have some dummy data, which is about customer transactions. I have created a bucket, and in this bucket, I have three different folders. One is the raw folder where my raw data lands in. Then I have a profile job output. I'll talk about more about data profiling in a minute. And then I have the output of the this job or output of the DQ rules that will be saved in the output folder. In the raw folder, I have a dummy data called customer_data.csv. Now, if you go to the DataBrew, and you can see that I have already set up a project, and this project connects with the data source, which is S3, and from there it is going to pull the data and show it in this nice visual interface. While this is loading, I can go to the data sets, and you can see that I have a couple of data sets here, but we're talking about the customer transactions. If you click on this, it tells you what's the location of your source data, which is a DataBrew demo bucket and then the raw folder. And some additional configurations about the file type, which is CSV. It is comma separated. So let's go back to the projects and click on this. You can see that behind the scenes, AWS actually runs a virtual machine or probably a container which loads this entire data and create a data frame out of that. And then you can visualize this, apply some transformation logic. You can apply the transformations using something called recipes. So you can add a step, which is basically a transformation logic step. So you can add multiple steps in the recipe and apply that transformation to your data. All these things are covered in the previous video. What we're going to focus in this video is before we apply the transformation, how we want to make sure that the data which is landing in the raw folder or whatever the source of this data is, we want to apply some standards right at the beginning before we do any transformation or we apply any business logic. So this is my project where the dummy data, I have like 5 rows and 5 columns. And you can see that I have some null values here or missing values here. And I have some negatives in the transaction amount, which is kind of doesn't make any sense. And what we need to do right now is before we apply the DQ rules or before we even start configuring DQ rules, the first thing that we need to do is to profile the data. Now, what is data profiling? Data profiling is a process of analyzing your data so that you can get more insights out of your data set. Now, the data set that we are using, this is a very, you can say simplistic and small data. But in the real world scenario, you probably have 100,000 records or millions of records. So how you can apply the rules, DQ rules, if you don't know what your data looks like or what are different correlation between your data, some more insights about your data. So that's why it is always recommended to profile your data before you apply any DQ rules. Now, how you can profile the data? So that's where you need to create a job. So if you click on the jobs, we have like 2 types of jobs here, recipe jobs and the profile jobs. Recipe jobs are something that we apply during the transformation of the data. This is again covered in the previous video, but in this we are going to create a profile job. So what is a profile job? It collects your data and it profiles your data, and then it produces some insights like correlations, and it will also detect if the data has some missing values. So we'll see all these things. The first thing that we need to do is to create a job. And here you can just simply provide a job name. Let's call it customer transactions. And you are going to create a profile job. And here we have to connect a data set with this. So I already have my data set configured. I'm going to select this. And then are you going to apply this on the entire data set or just the sample data? Now, in the real world, you are not going to apply this to entire data set because that will be like, it's going to take too much time if you have like millions of records. The profiling is basically get a sample of the data and do some analysis on that. So you can say, okay, let's profile first few thousand rows out of my entire data set. But in this case, we just have 5 rows, so we're going to apply this to our entire data. Doesn't matter. And then once the data profiling job is completed, where this output will be stored. So in this case, we are going to store in the same bucket where our data is landing in, but a different folder. You can also save this into any other S3 bucket or S3 bucket in different AWS account. So I'm going to browse this. This is my bucket. And in this bucket, the profile job is the folder that I'm going to select. So there are some different configurations which are provided by default, like enabling duplicate row count detection. So if you enable this and your data has some duplicate records, it's going to capture that or collect that. If your data has some personal identifiable information or PII, it is going to detect that as well. If you want to enable some correlation, like you have like different columns and different values and how your different columns correlate with each other, so you can enable the correlation matrix as well. It will define it, or it will tell you how closely two variables are related, so you can have more insights about your data. Now you can define the profile on selected columns or all the columns. That's totally up to you, and it depends on your domain knowledge as well. So that is very important to have the domain knowledge so that you understand the data in general, so that you aware of, okay, if I apply the profile on these columns, that's going to be helpful to me versus applying the profiling to all the columns. So having the domain knowledge about your data is super important. Now at this time, we are just going to run this profiling job. We still don't have any DQ rules. We apply those rules later. So, and then you can create a role. So you can either create a new role, or if you have existing role, you can use that as well. In my case, I already have one existing role, so I'm going to use that. You don't need to define the policies whatsoever. So when you create a new role, AWS creates a new role as well as the required policies. But if you see that something is missing, you can always go and edit the role and apply the required policies. But in most of the cases, you don't need to update the role. Now create and run the job. It's going to take around 2 to 3 minutes in order to finish the job. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to pause this video for now, and once the job will be completed, I'll return, and then we can go ahead and see what kind of insights are provided by the data profiling jobs. So the job has been completed. As you can see, it took around 3 minutes to complete. So now we have the data profiling done. Let's go and apply some DQ rules. Now click on DQ rules and click on create data quality rules. Let's call it customer transactions rule set. And you can select your data set. Now you can start defining the rules. Now, before you start defining the rules at your own, what you can do is click on this view associated dataset details. And here you can get some recommendations. Now the recommendations are possible because we have done the data profiling. Now once the data profiling is completed, DataBrew is smart enough to give you some recommendations based on the data that's there. Now you have a few of these recommendations. Of course, not all of the recommendations make sense, but you can pick and choose, and it will be super easy to get started with defining the rules. Now the first data quality check that we can apply is duplicate rows. Like we want to check the data for duplicate rows. We do not want duplicate rows in the data set. So that makes sense. Now other is check all the columns for missing values. If you expecting that your data is not going to contain any missing value, then this check makes a lot of sense. But if you want to apply this missing value logic on a specific column, you can do that as well. But just for the sake of this demo, let's say that, okay, the column quality check that I'm going to apply is I want to make sure that all of the columns do not have any missing values. Now some of these like customer ID doesn't make any sense because your customer IDs keep on changing or keep on increasing as you're getting more customers. And age for unique values, I don't think it makes sense either. But you can define a check for age. Let's say age should be greater than 18 to make sure that all the adults are making the purchases. But it depends like whether it makes sense or not. The other thing that makes sense in this case is we have transaction amount, which is a dollar value, And we saw that earlier that some of the records have a transaction amount in negative, which is something we, of course, we don't expect, and that should not be the case. So that's the perfect logic to apply, that the transaction amount column should have value greater than 0. So all the positives, and greater than 0 means at least $1 or anything which is greater than 0, but it should not be in negatives. So that is something that we can apply manually. But out of these recommendations, these two recommendations, something that I would go with right away. So I'm going to add this to the rule set. Now you can review it. The first rule is check dataset for duplicate rows. And it says that individual check for each column, duplicate rows less than equals to 0. So it means that there is no duplicate row or no duplicate record. And then you have check columns for missing values. We are going to apply this logic on all the columns, and it means that the missing value is equals to 0%. So there should be no missing value. The next rule that we want to apply, and that is a custom rule, which is about having the non-negative values in the transaction amount column. So let's name it non-negative transaction amount. And the data quality check, we're going to select the numeric value, which is this. And here we're going to apply this to only the transaction amount column. And the condition is it should be greater than, not even equals to, but greater than 0. So that means that this column should have a value which is greater than 0. So there is no negative, or even 0 is not acceptable. So now you can review your rules. So we have 3 rules in here. So first one is the duplicate rows check. The second one is for missing values. And the third one is for non-negative transaction amount. Now you can create the rule set. After you create the rule set, you can apply this to the profile job. Remember, when we created the profile job initially, we did not apply any DQ rules because we didn't have any DQ rules at that time. So now, after the profiling has been completed, we have some more insights about the data. So based on that, we created the rule set, and now we are going to apply the rule set to this job. Now you can see here, this is my profile job, which is customer transactions, and this rule set that we have created. So this has been applied to this particular profiling job. You can apply multiple DQ rule sets to a single job. Now for the profiling job, you can create the schedule, like you can trigger it based on the certain time of a day, or let's say on the weekdays, or you can also set up the cron job for this, or you can even trigger it manually or using the API. If you want to create a schedule, select this. If you already have a schedule defined, you can use that, or you can click on create a new schedule. And this is how the schedule is going to look like. So there are different options here. It's about the frequency, like every X hours, like every 1 hour, 2 hour, 5 hours at a particular time, or you can also define a cron specific schedule as well. So we're going to apply this rule set to this job, and then we're going to trigger the job manually. So click on save. And now that we have the rule sets defined, let's click on run job. So full data set, and the location is profile job. Looks good, and click on run job. While this job is running, so I would like to go to the projects. And in the projects, you have something called profile. If you click here, now you can see that the one job is in progress, but we ran this job previously as well without the rules. And you can see this is the information that was provided after the profiling job was completed. So it has actually identified the missing cells and the valid rows. So these were the results out of the profiling job itself. So there was some logic in the profiling job that detects whether there's any missing value or the duplicate rows, and also defines the correlation between different columns. And this is again the compare the value distribution, like based on the age, is there any correlation between age and the transaction amount, so something like that. And then we have some more facts about the columns, like how many rows are in this column. So each column has 5, but this one has 4 because there is the one which was a missing value or the null value. So it will give you some interesting insights about your data. And now you can see that we applied the data quality rules and the job is in progress. Once this job will be completed, we will get some more insights, and probably this is also going to tell us whether there's any error or everything is successful based on the rule sets that we have applied. So now the job has been completed. We can go back to the projects and click on the customer transactions and go to profile. And here we again get some more insights, but what we're going to look for right now is the data quality rules. Because previously, when we ran this profile before applying the rules, there was some insights about the data or about the data set that was helpful. And the profile, after the profiling was completed, we applied the rules and we ran the job again. Now, after running the job, we can go to the data quality rules. And now you can see that we have 3 rules that we defined in the rule set. Rule number 1 for the duplicate rows, it succeeded. Then we have check columns for the missing values, it gave us the error. And then for the non-negative transaction amount, we said that, okay, the threshold was for all the rows in that particular column, which is transaction amount. That's why it failed. 80% succeeded because 4 out of 5 rows had positive value, and there was a one which was negative. But this is how data quality rules enables you to maintain the standard of the quality of your data, and you find the anomalies or the errors right in the very beginning. We haven't talked about any transformation steps yet. Now, once these rules are applied and everything is successful based on your criteria, like here for the third rule, I said this has to be 100% the threshold. You can even say that 80% is my threshold. So in that case, this would have been resulted into an error, not failed, right? So similarly, you can define your thresholds and whatever makes sense for your data. And based on that, once all the rules in your rule set are succeeded or successful, then only you move to the next step, which is about applying the transformation. So rule sets really provide you some sort of guardrails around your data that ensures that the data quality meets the standards set by your data governance team. So that was all about data quality rules and how you can profile your data, apply the rules, and then you can see whether the rules are successful or not, and you can tweak the rules as you want. So I hope this video is helpful and you can play around with this, get some sample data, start applying some DQ rules and see what kind of output you get. Also, the correlations between different columns also help you understand your data set better. So get the sample data, run the data profiling job, configure some DQ rules, apply to your data set, and explore your project and see how that works. Let me know if you have any question on this. Put your questions in the comment section below and I'll be happy to answer. If you like this demo, if you like this presentation, do like this video and do subscribe to our channel. Thanks for watching.